I remember doing a workshop and uh, I had a bunch of teenagers in the group and I dumped out all these Nike shoes and they didn't know it, but one of them was going to be like in 3 weeks from now, that was going to be the new Air Jordan. And this kid picks this up and he says, let me tell you about how Air Jordans work. Okay.
Right. Are you ready to have your first timed bow tie tying?
Yeah. Yeah. Timed tying. I am ready. It's funny. I thought I practiced I was going to practice every day. And I have such a lack of discipline. I have not practiced till about a half an hour ago. I tried to do, but we'll see what happens. We'll see.
Amazing. Yeah. So I'll give you
That's the thing.
I'll give you 3 tries, one at the beginning, one in the middle, and then one towards the end. And your the time to beat was set on the most recent interview I did. So it's 56 seconds.
Oh,
Time to
okay.
beat, which I think is doable.
It's pretty bad. I didn't time myself at all because I'm trying
That's
to get.
fine. It's better not to think of it. Better not
I'm gonna be
to.
happy with whatever I get, and
Okay.
I just will get to the bow tie that looks like a bow tie part.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. So we'll start with the bottoms level.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Just because that's a bit of a skill also, like knowing sort of right difference in height to get them. And palms up. Okay, are you ready?
Oh yeah.
Set, go.
Okay.
He quickly gets the height up. He's got that first over under. Got his first bow pinched. And he's going around with the other loose end. He's gonna push through his second bow now. Oh, he's putting the second bow at the front of the first bow, which is unusual.
Really trying to focus here. Sorry if I'm not chatty.
That's cool. It's looking good. And it's nearly done.
I pretty much have it there.
Wow. Wow.
I could, I can obviously make it prettier, but I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's amazing.
I know how to tighten it a little bit. Like I know that I blew this a little bit, and then I can do this a little bit. Before I went out to the opera, I would do a little extra to make it look real pretty. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think claim your first one was fine. Well,
Okay. All right. I just, quality is always an important thing for me.
yeah. So here's the time.
Oh, nice.
Smashed the record.
And I
Nice.
love this bow tie. I love this bow tie because I love the red, and I've been playing with it when I was practicing of getting, like, actually I did it that time. So you can get blue and red.
Ooh. Yeah.
And I think, my hats off to the design. I think this was your design, if I remember.
Well, I mean, I wasn't involved. The tailors just worked their magic, so
Ugh.
I kind of just noticed, hey, this one's like two-sided. So
Well, it's just, and you talked about the election and just the people coming together and, instead of being so divisive. And I just loved everything about it. Although when I picked it, it was just because I liked the look of it.
yeah, yeah. But I definitely like that two sides of the same coin thing.
Exactly. Yeah. There you go. And I can be red one day and blue another day. And
Fantastic. That's awesome, Arnie.
yeah.
Nice going. I like you. Yeah, I think we mentioned it before, but you've got a slightly different method to other people I've seen. Where you,
Yeah. Yeah. I remember trying to do, I wanted to do it your way, or the way you showed me. And I, occasionally when I've had to wear a bow tie, I'll look at YouTube videos or whatever. But what I just did is what I used to do. I think I mentioned over 30 years ago. I used to wear bow ties to presentations and stuff.
Can you remember where you got it from?
No, I mean, I at the time I lived in LA, um, and I was young, and I would have gone to kind of cool, like in Venice and stuff. They're just there's just cool places to get, vintage clothes and stuff. So
Mm,
either that, also Vicky, my wife, would occasionally buy me a special bow tie. So
that's
yeah,
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 uh,
that's good.
awesome.
So I did. It's nice that I already had an affinity for them. You see, so
Yeah. And then what started you wearing that? You sort of mentioned you wore them for work, like, was there just
but,
one day you woke up, you're like, "I'm gonna start wearing this," or
I mean, it's interesting. It's not in a funny way. I don't think it's dissimilar to the broader conversation we're having on creativity today. In that, I think for me, I've always liked not being totally conventional. Just like I don't want to, I don't want to be. Never want to stand out in an eccentric way, but I do. I love to just express a little bit of me that's just outside of the norm, outside of the status quo, outside of what everybody else is doing. Um, and it's done, from it's not done in a kind of purposeful, shocking way. It's done in a kind of like I'm just letting a little bit of myself out there way.
yeah,
And I was wearing them regularly. I just, they definitely, it was in the mid 80s and to late 80s probably. And I don't recall it being a trend or, anything like that.
yeah,
But I enjoyed it, so it was nice. And then I just, I guess in a meeting, I didn't look like everybody else. So there you go.
yeah. No, that's so fun. Uh,
Yeah.
and where you mentioned this thing of wanting to be a bit different or sort of expressing yourself a little bit. Do you know what the roots of that were? I don't It's like a difficult question, but I don't know, maybe there's someone in your life who inspired you or something like that.
Um, I mean, that's a good question. I don't, I definitely have had people who've inspired me and who have been mentors. And I think there's definitely a very influential period of time when I was living in my early 20s to mid 20s in London, working in advertising there. And I was very lucky to be, I mean, I had, one big mentor. Um, uh, but I also had lots of influences. It was like a hothouse of, especially the London advertising scene, at least back then. There was just like characters and people and the way they express themselves and a kind of a wildness as well, which I just always liked. So that was a period of time that was definitely
Yeah,
influenced. But having said that, I mean, I think there's also something that's just naturally probably in all of us. I mean, I often did something that was the opposite to what everybody else was doing.
yeah,
Back in, I remember everybody was wearing long hairs and the long hair in the, I guess it would be the early 70s um, to mid 70s. And I remember just, you know, getting a crew cut, and just to be totally different.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
Yeah, and I didn't keep it that way, but I did it for a summer, and
yeah,
it's just, um, and I also had long hair too, but it just like there was always a little something in me that wanted to not do what everybody else was doing.
You mentioned, you had one, sort of big mentor. Are you happy to talk about who that is, or
Yeah, it is. In fact, as I'm talking in the moment with you, I'm realizing I'm getting a little emotional because mostly because as when we last chatted, I mentioned that we'd retired,
Mm,
and and I have not shared that news with my mentor. His name is Mike Butterworth, and he uh, he lives in London, and I did go and visit him. Uh, oh gosh, it was probably 4 years ago, 5 years ago, or something.
yeah,
And that was pretty special after many years, and um, but yeah, I do want to share with him. But yeah, he was just such a, I was just so lucky. He was my boss at an advertising agency called the Hutton Company, which was in London. And God, he took me under. It's so funny because I didn't know I was being mentored. It just, I was like a sponge. I just kind of absorbed. Just everything the way he thought, the way he approached problems, the way he literally would sit down with paper and pencil and and work something through. He actually also found me a flat in an apartment. If anybody in America is listening to this, which was in his own in the building he lived in. It was on Portobello, just off of Portobello Road in Notting Hill Gate, and Colville Terrace. I can remember even that. And so even after work, I was always learning from him too. And he was older, obviously, than me, but he had such interesting friends, and he just seemed to include me. I mean, like a little brother or something. I don't know, but I used to. It didn't even feel like anything like that. He just, it just be spontaneous. You want to go out for a pint, and the next thing I was with three or four interesting people, or whatever. So, but anyway, yeah, I owe him a lot. Very, very appreciative of my approach to, branding and advertising, all that kind of stuff.
I like it, and I like how you often pass that on, right? And you can't really pay that back, but you can kind of pass it on. Uh, and
Yeah,
you've done that for me a little bit, like helping us with Zimbowties, and
yeah,
uh, I think your work with the charity work you're doing now.
yeah. I hope so. I mean, I don't do it in a conscious way. It's pretty natural. I hope it didn't
Yeah,
feel.
yeah.
I can promise you, I never felt like I'm going to be Kim's mentor. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
I truly value our time together, and
and
I also value what you're doing. And I think that's one of the things I'm finding, that when I value something, I just want to put more into it, and because I appreciate it. So yeah, that's how it's been with you and with other
yeah,
things that are my passion now too.
yeah. No, that's really cool. One of the big questions I was gonna ask you in this is, and you've touched on it already, is creativity, and how would you define it, or how would you explain it to people?
Yeah, and it's interesting. It did occur to me that being creative is very different to being an artist, and I don't, and I think an artist is actually, I don't even want to go there because I haven't thought it through properly. But an artist kind of like maybe just spends more time expressing their creativity in very kind of specific ways. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um, but I think that creativity, though, for me has been, I mean, this is a driving force in me forever, which
mm,
is, and I mentioned this from the very beginning, from wearing bow ties when nobody else was wearing them, but
mm,
just because I wanted to. I've had this. It's a resist. There's there's a complacency in the status quo. There's a complacency in just kind of going with the flow, with what's normal, with what's ordinary, which what's expected. And although I have a high regard for all those things, and thriving within a given construct or a paradigm, vocation, academia, whatever you want to call it, thriving within those rules and whatever, that's cool. I've always found I had to be outside of that. I
yeah,
had to, and I do just a real. I just would not be complacent, and what that meant was, it was pushing myself to be. Uh, to to find outlets and expression beyond what was typical. And sometimes it was just, it was how I could participate in certain areas. Um, yeah, because maybe I've always had a really hard time. I don't think I was ever diagnosed dyslexia because I don't think they knew what it was when I was a kid. But I do, I have to send out words, and it just, I have to take my time, and I always did well at school, but I had to work really, 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 really hard, just to be okay at it. But when I stepped outside the status quo, I found, um, that I could get attention. I could do worthwhile things. I could contribute. Um, and yeah, yeah. I was thinking the other day, I was asked at a meeting, you're supposed to like surprise somebody with, something of your past. And I don't know if there's linkage, but just speaking with you, it just comes to my mind. Um, I was really into magic when I was a kid, and me
Okay.
and my friend Rex had a magic show. And in many ways, I think what I enjoyed about magic, we did birthday parties for kids, and we even did I think we had one adult show, and we had live animals in that, bunnies and stuff. It was pretty good, pretty wild. And then now I'm my sidekick in magic is my grandson, who's 3 years old. But you know, I think that there's something about magic that what makes it special is it's not whatever you expect, you're surprised. When you see the magic, you're like, you expect something to happen a certain way. And it's like the wow, the magic is that it doesn't happen the way you expect it to happen. And it's not that different to this driving force I'm describing to you, about
Yeah.
what I've pursued, in life is just not being, complacent with how everybody else does everything.
Yeah. So would you say you were trying?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was going to say that I'm not critical of the status quo at all, or anything
Yeah.
like that. Most normal way of doing things. Um, I've just found it rewarding to
Yeah.
step aside at least a half a step outside of that and see things in a new way or a fresh way. Or most importantly, is not just for me, it's for other people. If I believe you almost have to step out of what's normal to be provocative, to challenge a little, to capture people's imagination a little. That
Yeah.
if you serve something up that they expect, then they breeze through it like a bunch of bullet points, or skims through the paper or whatever. But if you want them to take pause and you want them to think and you want to provoke their imagination, at least in my heart, I think you have to step outside a little tiny bit and help other people with you see something they think they know really well in a new way or a fresh way or a refreshed way.
And I guess, did you? So when you were doing, like, just sharing your ideas and stuff, did that feel like you were doing that for yourself or for an audience, kind of thing, with like with like a magic show? You're you're sort of leading people down one, like they're expecting one thing and suddenly this happens. Would you feel like that you had in your work to some extent, like that
Yeah,
you had a
yeah.
different kind of audience?
I think so. Whether it was a magic show as a kid or giving a presentation to you know grown-ups in a marketing meeting or something. Um, you know, I always wanted to um I guess things like wonder, delight, these kinds of experiences. I don't think they come out of something that you're used to seeing. I think they have to they come out of just um I don't know, the ether that's just outside of what everyday normal is. And so and I whether again, so whether if I was doing magic, of course I wanted to be so convincing that it made the audience like in awe or wonder or just and in our my presentations, in work, my time with my children and then now grandchildren, there's something in me that just constantly wants to open that little space up. And I don't know where it is in your head, but it's just where delight and wonder and awe, and maybe they're just reminders of how awesome it is to be alive on Earth.
Yeah.
But that's always been something I've wanted to do. And even in work, you think, why, how do you do that in work? And, you know, I did it in my own little ways and lots of different times. Um, but for me, having clients, um, see, the clients usually just know almost too much about, whatever they need to know because that's their job. But to be able to come back and do a market research project and come back and share our insights in a way that surprised them, or offered a different angle or lens to look through something that they knew really well. It often is where the creative spark came for them. I wasn't being creative, but I know that, or maybe I was being creative in the way I was sharing the story of something, of our findings or insights. But what I get a kick out of is when the- when there's a spark or two or three sparks, and people, um, strategically or creatively, something pops in them, and they say, what if oh, we could do this, or we could try that.
Yeah,
And I I guess in work, that's something that I always strove for too. So for me, I guess that's good, but it's, creativity, but I don't separate, like, work and magic shows and being a dad, and even just hanging out with friends, whatever it is. Yeah.
cool. And did like was there something about the time that you grew up or influential people in your life you think that supported that for you? Like,
I think that's a great question. And because I think I'm not saying that this life event I'm going to share with you had to happen to kind of shape the way, I saw the world, participated in the world, contributed hopefully a little bit, um, experienced, um, the world. But in 1976, I was 16 years old, and was living in Los Angeles, and dad was having a hard time with work. He was an amazing chemist, and then became business person, and he did wonderful things, but he had a couple tough years, and he got a job in England, in the north of England. And we moved to Nantwich in Cheshire. It was just, it's not a tiny town, but pretty small. At least it was when we were there. And I went to never graduated high school here in the States, but I did my A levels, in England, and then I went to college at Keele University. The school I went to was a total, it was from little kids right through, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, and there were only 300 students. Graduating class was typically 50 to 60,
yeah,
um, boys. And what going from the culture differences between being a teenager in Southern California, where, on a beautiful day, you go in English class and read outside in the quad or whatever, and going to this very strict boys' school where they, would make sure you're wearing the right color socks, and your tie's done right and all that, and it was so different, and it was although the same language was spoken, and you must have experienced this too, growing up in Zimbabwe, but also spending time in England, Scotland, I'm sure, in America, that even sharing a common language, the cultures are very, very different. And I think it really does benefit. I think everybody should have this experience of being somewhere, again, not familiar, not like where they grown up, not like, that you have to find a way to, um, fit in enough to be accepted, and learn from that. But it also gives you some space to learn about yourself and learn about others, and how not everybody is the same. Not everybody has the same history. And so anyway, I think that, I haven't really thought it all through, but I think that moving to a completely different country, and it doesn't even have to be a different country. If you maybe it's, just a very different place with very different people, is kind of was an influencing factor for me.
yeah, yeah. I've heard that from a couple of people. For lots of people, but like one of the other guys I interviewed, he moved. a lot of schools to a lot of different schools,
Yeah.
and each time he was in a new school, he could kind of reinvent who he was. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's interesting. Huh.
Well, it was, and even like, it's funny that things that you like, I think it was sport, so in America, I did long distance running, cross country running, and, and, and I played soccer, and the rest of the world's football. And I was in the States, I was reasonably good at soccer, and I played from a little kid, and it was pretty new to the culture that I would have been playing in the late 60s. I probably would have started. Um, and, so, a 16-year-old, I'm going to this new school. And it's like, this is what I have, I'm going to be, this is what I can show them that I'm good at something. So they'll like me, and I was terrible at soccer because they all, when they're, just when they learn to walk, they're given a soccer ball and they're, and it just, the standard at least when I was growing up was so far um,
Yeah,
beyond me anyway. And so I couldn't even make the team. And running, I also I wasn't good enough. But the funny thing was in the States, I was never particularly good at basketball, but most kids in the States can play basketball because it's kind of part of our culture. And they had just recently discovered basketball. And so my brother, who was very, very good in the States, even at middle school, the high schools were like, they wanted him to come to their school. He was great. I wasn't great, but I could play. And so that was our gift. We were like, they were, just the two, look what they can do. These guys, the boys in the school, they couldn't even dribble. They could dribble from their mouth. They couldn't dribble a basketball. And we, I think both of us got, I think helped them and, see that game and enjoy it. My brother really did. He was there for a much longer time. I was only there for 2 years. He
yeah,
was there for 4 or 5 years. Whilst he was there, they became, they went right up to being, competitive and all that stuff.
yeah.
It's
That's fun.
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Have these differences in your skill levels.
exactly.
It's all relative.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. You touched on work a little bit and people sort of having aha moments or coming up with ideas, and with the market research and stuff that you did, a lot of it, as I understand from our conversations before, is having kind of these creative workshops, and just getting people to talk and brainstorm together, and what are some of the ways you've found for getting other people to be creative who might not normally identify themselves as being creative?
I think that I don't think it was that complex for me. What we did qualitative research, and we call them workshops because we didn't like the stigma that was attached to what we were doing, which is mostly what we were doing was focus groups.
Mm,
And because the majority of focus groups, as they're practiced in the States, are still pretty pedantic, kind of boring, asking people questions and listening for their answers, and you know, and it just doesn't. It's not the way. I'm not saying it's everybody practices it that way, but the standard isn't that high. I think in England, where I learned, it's also the home of qualitative research. In the late 1950s, early 60s, it started. Schlackman, I think his name was Bill Schlackman, I think. Anyway, I got to learn from the masters there, and then we came to the States to have our company. Um, and I think from the very beginning, people, especially creative advertising agencies, Goodby Berlin Silverstein, which is, I guess it's now Goodby, Silverstein and Partners or something. But there were, and Wyden Kennedy and Shia Day was a big patron early on because they kept bringing us from England first to help develop advertising campaign ideas with them. Um, they saw the magic in the way we conducted our workshops. And I get, for me, it was really simple. I think that it's like people respond and participate in an experience based on the role they're expected to play. Okay.
Okay.
So, and people play different roles. All of us play different roles in our lives every day, you know? Um, and I guess and I think most research, definitely quantitative research, which is data driven. Um, and I definitely want to talk about data driven kind of work versus kind of the kind of work that we did too. But anyway, quantitative research or even qualitative research, which is kind of Q&A based, not really listening to people and working with their ideas or whatever. It's um, what happens is that the participants are treated like consumers and they play their role as consumer. So they're not always genuinely themselves. They're which salad dressing do you like? The one with the really yummy one with all these great ingredients and this kind of a high sugar and lots of calories. Or do we have this one which is half the calories and much better for you well, as a consumer, you'll say, well, I go for the lower calories because I care about my health. And the reality is often that's not the case. And and so I guess what we always did in our work was instead of, I think what happens in a lot of research is that you're putting the respondent, you're not treating them like a person, you're treating them as a respondent. And you're basically asking to judge on things. Would you like this? How much do you like this? On a scale of 1 to 5, how much would you do this or not do that, or agree with this or not agree with that? And you just kind of say what you think you should say or ought to say, but desire and impulse and instincts, none of that's kind of part of what you're finding out, which is where reality kind of lives. So I would say what I should have said in the beginning, because it was a shorter answer, instead of treating consumers as judges of what they buy or not buy, what they like or what they don't like, we always treated them as kind of co-conspirators, co-creators, collaborators. They were in on the process.
Mm.
And, and in terms of the way we did it, when you let down the curtain and you make sure that everybody participating knows why they're there, how they're going to help, designing a new line of sports shoes or athletic equipment or jeans or whatever, or often with our work, it would be a new advertising campaign, branding campaign, whatever. That we have rough ideas, and they're gonna be like, we're gonna treat them in this group like seeds, and you're gonna grow them together by working off of each other, using your imaginations, listening and building to each other. And our groups were always very dynamic and they had a lot of energy. Um, and that's our role as a moderator, was really to facilitate that kind of energy. And people would leave and they would be so kind of jazzed by what, they just
Yeah.
experienced. Everybody likes experiencing something, collective creativity, sparks flying, coming up with something, seeing things in new ways. These things would often happen in our workshops,
Yeah.
and they felt like they were really part of the larger process, the larger creative process that
Mm.
happened. They played and they realized they played a critical role in all of
Yeah.
that. So that's a big difference that, yeah, not respondent isn't treated as, judged, but they're treated as kind of co-conspirator, co-creator kind of.
That's very cool. And how you sort of mentioned a bit about data. How do you see companies using data now? Or yeah, I guess that's kind of what there's a bit of a trend towards big data and stuff. And what what's your feeling there with quantitative versus qualitative research? And
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. And I think, I don't want to go into it all now, because but you could literally be academic and look at waves where since 1960 to today, where data driven quantitative input into creative processes and advertising anyway were kind of ruling the roost, and then other times the softer measures of humanity, qualitative ones, would have some more status, and then sometimes they're kind of even or whatever. But today's world, which is all algorithm generated, sales basically, that's based on, we're uh, by being a purchaser, we're also actually being, uh, a research respondent, because we're the data of what we buy and how we buy, as everybody knows now. It's all goes into these huge, I don't know, data driven, I don't even, whatever happens in those computers, and then spits out, what the trends are, and what to sell individuals, and individual segments and all that kind of stuff. Um, but whether it's today's version of what happens with purchasing online, with Amazon's the best example, but it happens on every single level of just all your tastes are monitored, and your social media and everything, and then you're being targeted advertising and messaging and products that um fit your profile, fit
Mm.
what you already do. Okay. That's happening now, but even in throughout recent history, and again, I'm going, it's 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, what the more data driven the decision making, um, that leads to developing products and communication, brands evolving, the more data driven it is, the more you're doing things literally by the number. You're satisfying what's already going on. So you're basically you're selling people what they already know they want.
Mm.
And I would argue that quantitative research, if that's the only input you're using to develop, product and develop communication, that and develop your brands or whatever, that you're recognizing what people already want, and you're satisfying that need. Okay. That they, or that even that desire, what they want. So you give them more of that. And what's missing in that is that you don't get to find out what people don't know they want.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's in my mind, the kind of work we did, kind of the softer measure of an individual's interests, desire and want, you know, that's where that that's where the delight in discovery happens, you know. Um, if you can get if you can get insights into what people didn't know they wanted, but when they see it and they come across it, it truly delights, or it uplifts, or it expands. Um, then that's a good thing, And
Mm.
my biggest concern is that when you scoff what I'm talking about and just go for the data-driven solutions, that things become more and more predictable, more
Mm.
expected. The status quo, your personal status quo, the way what your comfort is fed and fed and fed. So you don't explore. You don't try as many new things. I don't have stats to back up what I'm saying. It's just been my instincts forever that calculated, data driven decision making processes result in marketing and product that is predictable.
Yeah.
Uh, and that if you truly want to go out and mine for real insight, that's when you push. I can give you one. I can't think of that many. It's something about being retired. I have all the stories, but there's one story that pops to mind. And it was a story that came. The very famous shoe designer, and I think I talked to you about him, Tinker Hatfield. Is that
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
You heard of it? And I had the good fortune on a handful of occasions to actually, he was involved in some of the projects, and met him a few times, way, 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 way back, um, 30 years, 25 years ago. But anyway, he designed. My understanding was that he designed all the Air Jordans, from especially I know from the beginning of that whole phenomenon. Um, and you've got young kids, especially inner city kids, who would just be desperate for that next Air Jordan, you know? And the designs of those, a lot of them were really out there. I mean, like unsettling, you know, and I remember doing a workshop and uh, I had a bunch of teenagers in the group and I dumped out all these Nike shoes. And they didn't know it, but one of them was going to be like in 3 weeks from now, that was going to be the new Air Jordan. And this kid picks this up and he says, let me tell you about how Air Jordans work. Okay. He knew it wasn't out yet, but he knew it was coming. And I said, I'm looking at this and I'm telling you right now, when I look at it, it's butt ugly. But I'm telling you that once it gets into the world, like in 3 weeks, I'm going to be in line for it. And I'm going to be doing everything I can to get it and get the money to get it. And the thing is, I'm going to look at it and it's going to be so cool. It and he really he actually describes something which I think happens in the design process. That's not just what we individually see, but it's this kind of momentum, cultural momentum, as more and more people start to see the same thing in a certain kind of way, that it becomes not but ugly, but actually like groundbreaking, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
really different. So that's why I'm sharing you this example that, you know, and Nike, I think, and they had a design ethos there that I think that nurtured this, that, you know, that you got to push yourself outside the norm, and you have to help people see something that they didn't know they wanted, but it excites them, it provokes them, it engages them, and in ways they never imagined. So anyway, and going back to magic. I guess I've always been seeking the little bit of magic in our everyday lives, even if it has to do with marketing and buying stuff, consumerism. You know, you can even have magic there, and then when you do, to me, it makes it worthwhile
Yeah.
than just having more stuff. You know.
Yeah. No, I like it. That's cool. Right, are you ready for another bow tying attempt?
Sure.
You want to see if you can break your record?
I mean, I guess, you know, I don't. Again, I'm trying really hard to not be competitive. So, but it would be nice to see what happens. Maybe I'll try and see if I can do something. Maybe I'll try and make the blue come out next time. So
Oh,
it's like
exactly.
start even, right?
Yeah.
Like that. Okay.
Cool. You ready?
Yep.
All right. Let's see your palms. Okay. Go. Oh, it's looking quick this round. He's trying to decide which way to put the bow tie, front or back. See, there's two color choices here. He's got his first bow over done, and he's the long end over to get that second bow through. Just threading it through. This time is looking good. Oh, he's close to done. Just tightening things up a bit here.
Oh, you know, I'm not going to let it be. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay. I'm going to make it a little bit special here.
Nice.
Whoops. No, I don't care if it takes more time.
Okay.
Yeah. I got him a little bit twisted this time somehow. Let's see. It's a matter of shaping it up now, but I'm going to be longer, but more pleased with this one if I can make it work. Let's see. See, red and blue.
Clearly. That's awesome.
It,
Cool. Yeah. It's a little bit slower, but
well, was it? I didn't see it. I was curious if I could do it, and yeah, there you go.
yeah, you had a 1:27.
Ah,
So
maybe the next time I'll just go.
it was worth it. It was worth it to delight the audience.
Oh, you see, I'm not sure it actually does work. You know, the thing is, it did get a little turned around if you do it that way. But anyway, yeah, this one's so long. I'm just sorry to,
Yeah. Or you can untie it if you want.
but I might just untie it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm.
see,
You
there
got
we
one more.
go.
You've got one more try.
Okay.
So, uh, so now you're happily retired, and you mentioned a bit about you've got some creative outlets, like just like everyday things, right? And
Yeah,
time with your grandkids, working on your boat. What are there any other examples of? Do you still feel like you're being creative? Like that's still there in your life? Uh,
I think so. I mean, well, I think I mentioned this, but I'm kind of excited about having this new magic show with my 3-year-old grandson.
yeah.
So we've done a couple of shows, and my window with him is only so wide, because he's so darn cute. So
Okay.
what happens, a magician, it really helps when everybody's looking at the cuteness. I can do all sorts of, things they shouldn't see.
That's awesome.
So I could win. And I still get such a kick out of, although he kind of has an idea about how the tricks work. He's still of an age where when they actually happen, he's like, wow, how did, so his reaction also. So I was, um, but anyway, am I being creative? I thought I have little of my desk here. I have all my watercolors and brushes and stuff. And I kind of, if I had imagined retirement, I would have imagined painting a lot more and sketching a lot more. To be honest, I haven't been. If
Yeah.
anything, much less. And I haven't done any watercolors for uh, probably a year. So I wonder why. I don't even want to analyze it. I've been very, very busy and involved and doing lots of stuff. And um, you know, uh, am I still being creative? I don't know. I still, even when on the nonprofit Intercambio, feel so close to, and I'm on the board of there. Um, you know, I'd like to think that the way I participate always brings in a different perspective. I guess that happens for everybody. But that's, you know, my contribution is just, usually to do with communications, how they talk about what they do and what makes them special, what makes them different.
Mm.
Uh, and how they also, you know, in this case, it's not selling more stuff. In this case, it's making a societal impact in a positive way. The more people who move to this country who don't speak English or don't speak English confidently, if you can give them the tools to learn and to learn about the culture and to learn about the language, you're really helping in all sorts of ways. And the way we do it, um, it's a learning experience for the volunteer teachers as well, too, because it's all, you're learning about each other's lives and histories and um,
Yeah.
viewpoints and all the things we all should be doing anyway all the time, but we don't.
Did you feel pressure to be creative? Like you get this label of being a creative, perhaps, and there's like
Yeah.
pressure to live up to that name, or and it's not always necessarily healthy, maybe.
Yeah. I think in my chosen vocation, and by the way, this is part of the biggest beauty for me about retiring has been, yeah, Vicky and I and Lisa have been easing out for the last 3 years or so. For me, absolutely cutting the line, like a fishing term, just like letting go of all of that,
Mm.
period. Not dabbling, not going in and, giving the occasional talk at CU or let alone taking on a project or whatever. I mean, truly let it's been so good for me. And I think part of it is like what you do in life often, I think is a big part of your identity, like, how other people see you. And there's something humbling in a very positive way about kind of taking that away so that now I'm just serving myself up. I mean, I'm just art. If someone meets me, Arnie, it's like, it's not Arnie. Oh, he does this, or he worked on that campaign, or it's not that I'm not, that's not part, at least in my head, that's not how who I am or how I'm seen. And it's been a very good thing. It's exciting. It's exciting. It feels like going out into the world in the same way as when I graduated university, going out into the world and truly not knowing what I was going to do.
Yeah.
Uh, and it's similar in that kind of on an emotional level of the excitement, almost giddiness. I just I'm leaving myself open to seeing what comes our way, in
Mm.
life. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But if in terms of being a creative, I don't I have to say I don't I wouldn't have labeled myself a creative, less of, although I think I've always felt of myself, and people who know me very well would probably say, "Oh, yeah, he's quite a creative guy, or he's quite a creative person." And I'm guessing they would just say that just because, I don't know, I sent them a card with a picture or something that I drew on it, or if they were a client, they saw a report that never looked like a report that they normally get. It had watercolors in it, and sketches, and all sorts of things that they don't normally see,
Mm.
as opposed to a bunch of bullet points, page after page after page, which is what they do normally see. Um, I don't feel like I ever tried to live up to that reputation. I did want to always bring to the table something fresh and something new. And you know, yeah. So I'm not sure it really answers the question about, how one labels oneself. I think, in an advertising agency, there's like three species. There's the account people, the creative people, and the strategic people or planners. And there's other media, but on the whole, those are the three types. And I've even seen people who've done like analyses, like, oh, the creatives, um, what is that? Like the Eric Burns TA transactional analysis. They'll say, oh yeah, they're the child in the agency. They get to, have fun and foster their desire to, and then the strategic people, the planners, they're like the parent in the agency, and there's like what you should do, or what you ought to do, and then the account people are like the adults, and they're just kind of weighing everything and proceeding with the process in a nice rational way. And you know, and it's interesting. I only bring that up because it's an exaggeration, and it's this kind of stereotyping. But there's some truth that runs through seeing yourself in a certain way, or wanting to be yourself in a certain way. And, a lot of the creative people that I've met, um, I think they live up to that. They have to, almost like, I don't know whether they consciously behave a little bit in a certain way, to keep that that impression, as well as how they see themselves. I don't know. Um, but I've always tried to mix that up. I remember Nike, a profound thing. It was the launch of ACG, so it's like the outdoor uh, line that they came up with.
Yeah.
And before it had a name, and before, when it was in the concept stage, we were working with some internal workshops at Nike, and I remember we had basically design half of the room were designers, and half the room were the kind of marketing and business PLMs, I think they're marketing people. Um, and we would have, we did different role playing, but one of the role playing I did was I wanted them to be the consumer. I wanted them to pretend to be the consumer, and literally, first picture the consumer. So we put probably the people they wanted to sell their new outdoor line to. Who were they? And we kind of work out maybe some different, in marketing they would call them segments, but like general types of people that would be interested in this. And then we would just say, okay, now you're going to be these people, and then we would just kind of play it out, and a day in the life of kind of stuff or whatever. And what was interesting is the business people. I remember distinctly. It was they had a harder time staying in that kind of empathetic way, staying in the role of the people who were their consumers.
Yeah.
Whereas the designers, if my memory is that they find it much easier to slip into that role, you know, to play that role. And I just, it kind of shows possibly how some people in creative disciplines may have this kind of deeper connection or empathy in a
Mm.
natural way with the people that they want to connect with their design,
Yeah.
create that little magic and that connection. Whereas the people who were responsible for the, selling this stuff, which is serious, they had a little, they were just, there's more detachment, I guess. I don't, it hasn't been important for me to label myself creative, um, nor want to be seen as creative.
Yeah.
I just kind of practiced it throughout my life in the way we've discussed of just taking delight in delighting others.
Yeah.
If I can do whatever I'm doing, and this could literally involve going to the pool or the park with a grandchild if they're delighted, or if I'm in a straight laced, big wig advertising meeting, if I can do the same thing in that context, then that's what a driving force for me throughout my life, and yeah.
That's interesting. And yeah, you touched a bit on letting go of your business. Now you've kind of got this blank slate, right? Like this blank canvas of things you can do.
It is nice. Yeah, I mean, and I can't tell you how, it's not like I have a lot of time. I don't know why I'm so busy, but I have a lot of things going on, which is great.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of it's just about being engaged, in a lot of different pursuits and friendship and nonprofits and and being a grandparent. We're very involved grandparents. Every week we have usually 2 days that we're looking after the children and yeah, just like there's a lot going on, but I just also feel, I'm very excited, enthusiastic about just what I don't know is going to happen, around the next corner. Um, it feels good, it's exciting.
Does it feel like time is moving quicker or slower?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, kind of both. I mean, it feels like time does in a literal sense of the experience of time. I think it can feel slower, but then in like where did the week go? It could be it can seem kind of fast in that way.
Yeah.
Um, uh, um, but I guess the reality of having less pressure um, to deliver, just with the work part of one's life. It is a freedom to maybe slow down a little bit in terms of just appreciating the moments that make up a day,
Mm.
uh, a lot more. And we do, we every day we go hiking, for example, and many of the hikes we take are the same hike, but you see it in that time of day and every day it's different, every hour it's different, every minute it's different,
Yeah.
and the creatures, and whatever, so anyway, yeah, I think it's allowed me taking that kind of burden of there's something wonderful, and I hope, in today's world, at least in the States, that more people from a whole variety of vocations, occupations, did retire in their mid 60s, for example, it's kind of a normal thing, you know, um, whether you're a teacher, engineer, market researcher, whatever, but you just, and I worry that it's become harder to do that, you
Mm.
know, and, um, and I worry that there's less people that aren't, I talk about living the last third with gusto, the last third of life, that in a meaningful way, for me contributing to, as well as experiencing. And I'm just hoping that that people value that, and maybe have the opportunity. I mean, to have it. I don't take it for granted at all, because I don't think it's, um, I'm not sure how accessible a longer period of life like that is, where, when I think of retirement, what I really am saying is not having to work to
Yeah.
get along. So not having to, and some people got the wonderful, the best friends, Steve Jenkins and Robin Page. I don't know if they write children's books, and they're so talented, and they love what they're doing, and they'll be in their 90s, and they'll be 100. They'll still be probably making children's books, because I know they love what they do. Um, I didn't. I mean, I got fulfillment out of it, and I appreciated my livelihood. But the freedom in not having to do it to get along, is special. I'm still getting used to it. I
Mm,
told you, well, they really officially kind of closed it. Um, I guess it was probably last December.
yeah. So would you have like any advice for like, I don't know, 30-year-old Arnie for thinking about retirement, or like for myself? Like,
I would give you two things. It's great. It sounds so hokey. Here the whole time I've been talking about, like, stepping outside of, like, what you saying, what everybody else says, like everybody else says is like cliche. I never use the word cliche. That's another thing, stepping outside of cliche, or what you expect to hear.
yeah,
But, one of the things that all of my children have heard, and they know, um, but really, if you're, you know, by the time you get to be 30 or so, um, I think I apologize for how predictable this sounds, but
so,
if you diligently save money,
yeah,
oh, we had because we had our own small company, we had a profit sharing plan, but we put the most we could. And I remember being, 28, 30 years old, or whatever, whenever, probably 30, 32, when we started to really do that. And I just thought, why are we doing this? We should keep the money, get in the market, go have fun, go on another trip, buy a new car. Yeah, all that stuff. But no, we really were so disciplined about putting in the max we were allowed to every single year. And the reality is, and I'm not a financial person that can tell you how this actually works, but if you do it, and do it a disciplined way, and you put it in, mutual funds, and I can't myself like such an old guy, mutual funds, whatever, but you do it every single year, then you've got a pretty good chance when you are in your 60s of
yeah,
a real nest egg, so
yeah,
that's one thing. And I just
that's
kind of
cool.
embarrassed. The other thing I would say is that, I think that we've always, you know, g- um, donated money to causes we cared about. And we're not big, philanthropists or anything like that, because we're not big anything, we don't, but I think, well, every year we would have a budget, and we donate money to a range of causes that we care about. So only in the last, and this isn't just from retirement, I would say the last 10 years or so, um, have have we started to get to spend personal, like, real time doing something that we care about that helps others. So for me, it's been teaching English. Okay, so I was teaching English in intercambio. I did it for a couple of years. Uh, and it was wonderful. And then now serving on the board of intercambio and being very involved with their growth, and where they're going. Um, you know, Spending real time in meetings, and with people, giving that kind of time to help an organization that you really care about grow. Um, Basically, hands-on time. I had no idea how rewarding it was. I really didn't. And I, knowing what I know now, I would have started it earlier. Something, whether you're going to be like a big brother or something, or mentoring kinds of things, or,
Yeah,
whatever you. and it doesn't even have to be formal, but just something that you want to do that helps others.
Yeah,
And I just wish I don't have regrets because plenty of time, hopefully, knocking on wood, to make up for it now. But I would have liked to have started that a little earlier. Yeah.
that's cool. Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Uh, there was something you brought up before. You mentioned someone, David. Is it David White, or the
Oh,
like a philosopher or someone? Yeah.
yeah, and I don't, his name is David White, and I think it's Whyte, and
Yeah.
he is. I'm pretty sure he's Scottish. Um, and I don't know him personally. I've read one of his books, or some of one of his books, but a great friend of mine, Chris Riley, does know him, and does these kind of off-site sessions with him and stuff. Um, but I don't know him, but he would be, you know, he sounds like such a stimulating, person who really, uh, all that kind of, again, it's cliche when you talk about empowerment, and helping you, see your future, the future you want to make for yourself and all that. But he just sounds like someone who really does know how to make that happen for a lot of people. So,
And I think, well, you were kind of talking about that in relation to your own, like, to retirement in your own life, and what
oh, that's, yeah.
what thoughts have you got there? And I guess it was
Well,
about being present. You touched on that a bit, like enjoying.
yeah. It was funny. I guess I was just telling you a story where it happens a lot where, it must have happened to you at some point where you feel like you have this epiphany about life, and it because and you think, wow, that's pretty cool. And for me, actually, this whole, like, truly letting go, the truth in letting go, um, the rewards in letting go, the freedom in letting go, how hard it is to truly let go of something, especially when it comes to a vocation or something, like that. Um, that using that as a pivotal point in one's life, um, to open yourself up, to being able to, you know, be present for new possibilities. Um, I thought, wow, you have to do that. You have to let go of something, like, for real, if you really want to open yourself up and present yourself up to new possibilities. And I thought I'd figure this thing out myself. And I was telling my friend Chris on the phone, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, I just got back from a workshop with David White last week, and that's exactly what we spent." But
Welcome to
it's
the club.
which is great. It means none of us are alone. We're not alone, and
Yeah,
that's there's kind of gratifying about that too, isn't there? To
yeah,
know that I always felt that the really meaningful things, the humanity, that you it just the shared experience of humanity is where a lot of the magic in living a life is to be found.
mm,
Um, and yeah, I try to practice that one every day, and with whoever I come across,
yeah.
Uh, yeah.
And that's interesting with Intercambio, right? With their different, like you were saying, there's like different languages and cultures there, and it's basically you have these different flavors, but underneath it all is kind of a common humanity.
Yeah, I mean, they have a thing. There's a thing that we do that's really evolving. Actually, I think it's going to also really continue evolving nationally, not just locally, in Colorado. But it's called community conversation, and it's a structured way of bringing people in a community who would like to have conversations with in English with people who want to learn English. And it's such a beautiful thing. It's such a simple idea, to get, recently, the last year and a half, it's been on Zoom, of course, but it started off being in person, and it works in both ways. But just to have a 10-minute 15-minute conversation with a couple other people. And, someone's from Guatemala, someone's from Iran, someone's from America, and you're talking about something and you're sharing your perspective, which is so influenced by your history, which is so influenced by your cultural context. You just learn so much about one another, both about those common golden threads that run through humanity, um, as 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 well as just truly different perspectives that help everybody just see a little bigger, you know.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, it's a beautiful, wonderful thing.
How does that work? Is there like a moderator or like questions that are like suggested questions or
Yeah, yeah, no, they put a lot of thought, and developed, uh, very specific ways of facilitating these sessions. So they're conducted and facilitated by people who've been, trained through the intercambio way, which so they give all the tools to train and practice and do. So there'll be a facilitator, and then typically what happens is that, everybody comes together either physically or on Zoom, and they first explain what the sessions are going to be like, and then you're broken into separate rooms either in a school or on Zoom, with the chat things or whatever. But you basically spend time with maybe two other people that are the students, and you're given, different topics, and uh, yeah, and for it's if it was just an ESL, English second language, typical class, you say, well, what great practice for English, which is why we do it. Of course, it's great practice for English, but it worked the way that the intercambio way works. There's a whole nother level of cultural exchange,
Mm.
awareness, cultural exchange, where you just, there's this much deeper thing that is happening, um, that just is kind of life enhancing for everybody, because you're sharing history and experiences, and you're also making your community bigger because you're getting to know different people in your community,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
and it's really special. But yeah, no, it's it's there's a format and a structure, and the people who are kind of conducting it set it up the right way. You do breakouts on your own, but everybody who participates has had a little tiny bit of training, even if it's 1 hour. They give, like, if I signed up and I'm living in Boulder and I just want to attend one of these things, and then the night before I did it, I would be in a kind of a little training session to, make sure, that I know what to expect, and given some ideas on how to participate. And yeah, it's terrific. It really is. It's really, really special, and it makes me want to. I want to do more of them. It'd be nice if everybody did one of these
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Such a good thing to have.
yeah.
All right. Arnie, would you like to have your last
Number
attempt?
three. Okay. Yeah, I kind of know the rule. I think I'm not going to try to be fancy on this one, but we'll see what happens. I'm gonna try to get into the zone. I was gonna the bow tie tying zone.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what happens. Okay,
Okay.
tell me.
Okay. Ready? And go. This is Arnie's last attempt. He's going for the record here. Super quick. Is he gonna get it? He's got that first bow already. Coming for the second one. Things are looking a little bit messy. But speed that counts right now.
Uh-oh. Oh no, I'm gonna have to start again. Wow, mate. See,
We're going for speed there.
no, there you go. Because which is not my nature. My best time was when I wasn't so concerned about the speed, but
Yeah.
there, there's something in that. Did you see the picture I sent you, by the way, of my daughter? putting a bow tie on me. I sent you an email just before our session.
Nice.
I'll show it to you in a second, but there we go.
So he's just tightening it up now, accepting that he's not gonna beat his earlier time. Good work, Arnie. Nicely done. Cool.
Recovery.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good, seeing as you did it twice.
Yeah, and I was practicing not getting frustrated, because when I messed up, I thought, okay, let's do it again.
Yeah.
So I did say I took a photo of this, but this was at a wedding in England, and my daughter Lucy she's very, very creative, and she took the photo and then she made this. I don't know if you can see. It's
Nice. It's kind of like mixed media.
yeah, it's like
That's awesome.
collaging stuff, and I could take a picture. I sent you a bat.
Very cool.
But it was just funny. It literally is hanging just to my left, and I
Yeah.
had kind of forgotten it until I sat down this morning or yesterday. I looked up at it and said, "Oh, good. I gotta show Kim that."
That's fantastic.
Good. Hey, well,
So should we update I'm going to show you the leaderboard.
sure.
Sharing my screen. So yeah, your times were, you had 42, which was your quickest. 7.4 and 1:31. Good thing we stopped there. There was a downward trend.
But my favorite one was although it's not the top, but
The middle one? Yeah.
the red and the blue are both showing their colors.
But either way, you go to the top of the leaderboard. There you are. Nice
Honor.
done. It's great. So far, this has been the order of my guests from the bottom upwards. So it's good.
People get faster and faster and faster.
Yeah.
I think I had that advantage, as you noted, that I did have a period of life when I actually did this more regularly. Not that it wasn't daily, of course, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it was.
Yeah. But do you find it's quite similar to tying your shoelaces?
Yeah, yeah.
It
I
is
think I
kind
do.
of.
Yeah, and I do remember when I was doing it all the time. One of the times I was doing it where would keep my finger in a certain place, I think, and then yeah. Anyway, I'm sure if I dedicated myself,
Yeah.
I could get even faster.
Yeah. Probably not worth it.
I think this is
Yeah.
enough. This is enough.
No.
Happy
So
to.
that was great, Ani. Thanks.
Well, you must stay in touch, and I do want to when the podcast becomes something real and out in the world, let me know, and I'll have a listen to
For sure.
the. I think it's such a wonderful thing to do. Getting different people's takes on the same subject, creativity.
Yeah. I'm getting so much out of it, and it's just it's very different to just having a conversation with someone. Like, I mean, in some ways it's obviously a bit one-sided because I'm asking most of the questions, but it like forces me to try. Well, I'm always trying to listen to what people are saying, but like sometimes you get stuck in your own head, right? So this like there's a lot more pressure to be like, okay, I need to try hear what he's saying and sort of follow up on that, and so that's good in one. It's like helping me get better at conversation and better at asking questions, like asking better questions. I found out that just helps like the quality of your questions in life. As you get older, you ask better questions, right? And you kind of start to learn more from that because you get by asking the right questions, you get different information coming back. So
Yeah, yeah, and you did a wonderful job, and I think that the thing that you're doing that whether it's natural or whatever, but what makes you such a good interviewer is you listen so well. So and reintroducing and recognizing common themes
mm,
that have come out in the conversation. That's what it's all about to me, because it's
yeah,
more personal. It's not like coming out and having the perfect set of questions asked in a certain order.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, it was great. It
yeah.
was nice to be on the
Uh,
receiving end.
yeah, no, thanks for taking part. It's also interesting, the editing side of it is very interesting too, right? Because
Yeah.
normally in a conversation, you have the conversation, you're done, but like I'm now gonna sit with this for another few hours, even just like I mean, like there won't be a lot of editing, but I'll like take out some of the like maybe there was like a glitch or something in the internet connection, or
Yeah.
sort of I'll have it zoom just on your face for some of the things, just on my face, just so it's like a bit more engaging for people. Like, uh, so there's this sort of things changing. But anyway, it forces me to like listen to things, and sometimes I hear things differently. I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't think of it like that, and it's so different to a normal conversation, which is also I'm finding that really rewarding too. So
Yeah. No, it's so cool. It's so cool. Well, I keep enjoying them um, yeah, and I think it'd be good to try to make them pretty tight too I don't know if there's like an ideal length of
yeah,
pod, but
yeah. It's tough, yeah. So what I'm doing at the moment is I sort of because this is quite it's fairly long, but then I also release some, like, clips, so people can get, like, a bite-size thing, so
yeah, and it might be fun to do. I don't know if you can do like maybe as a promotional part, but like some sort of montage. Because knowing you, I'm guessing that the people you're talking to, that was pretty interesting set of people that come
yeah,
from very different places in the world,
yeah,
um, yeah. So yeah, maybe a little,
that's a
you know,
cool idea.
30-second, minute long montage thing.
Yeah, that's a very cool idea. I'm gonna keep that in mind. Awesome.
Yeah.
No, great, Arnie. Thank
Yeah, yeah. Good
thanks so
luck
much.
with the move. It's